Welcome back to the channel. Let's get started.
In 1 year, a bushel of wheat could fetch nearly half a month's pay for a cowhand. You think that sounds great? Wait until you hear the rest of the story. In the first half of the 20th century, this land was called the Ocean of Grass, 400 million acres, grass as tall as a horse's belly, and no one had ever imagined it could run dry. One of the largest chunks of the ocean was the XIT Ranch, over 3 million acres, running 200 miles along the New Mexico border, once grazing up to 150,000 head of cattle. This land doesn't profit from taking, but from leaving it be. Grass grows, livestock grazes, grass grows again. The principle is underground, the interest is above ground. No one touches that principle, unless they want to go bankrupt. In 1914, war broke out across the Atlantic. America had not yet entered the war, but American farmers had, in a different way. Europe needs food to feed its armies, their fields are being plowed by artillery shells, not by tractors. The price of wheat, which had hovered around just 78 cents a bushel in 1913, began climbing without restraint. The government, through Food Czar Herbert Hoover, guaranteed a floor price of $2 a bushel, calling on every farmer to plow up more land to win the war with wheat. By 1917, the actual price hit more than $2 a bushel, while the cost of growing was only about 35 cents. The slogan echoing across the plains at that time was just one sentence: wheat will win this war. With money flowing like that, no fence could hold it back. From 1917 to 1919, the nationwide wheat acreage surged from 45 million to 75 million acres. In the Texas Panhandle alone, once XIT territory, the area of virgin grassland plowed under for wheat rose from 876,000 to 2,500,000 acres, in just 5 years. By 1926, of the 3 million original acres of the XIT, only 450,000 remained untouched by the plow. A 1927 newspaper article wrote, "This land was now known not for the cattle brand that once made it famous, but for wheat fields spanning 2,000 to 4,000 acres. The brand that once stood proudly on the back of a cow is now erased from the map to make way for perfectly square plots of land." What made the plowing many times faster was a new machine, the gasoline tractor. A draft horse took a whole season to clear a plot of land, the tractor did it in just a few days. The grass roots that had held the soil in place for thousands of years, withstanding countless dry seasons, were now overturned and left exposed under the sun in a single afternoon. Real estate companies promote a farming practice called suitcase farmers, out-of-town investors who hire locals to plow and sow wheat, then leave the land bare for the rest of the year. They didn't nurture the land, they wrung it dry, and once they'd wrung it dry, they left, leaving others to clean up the mess. One person witnessed this entire story through the very eyes of a horseman, Bam White, a cowboy of Native American descent, living in the North Texas region. He is not an actor, not a fictional character, he is a real person who witnessed an ocean of grass turn into wheat fields, then turn into dead land. When the film was released in theaters, he went to see it with his family, proud that the image of a hard-working laborer like himself was up on the big screen. But his neighbors in his small town didn't see it that way, they resented him and the film for exposing a truth the whole region didn't want to face head-on, and turned their backs on him. That's the price of telling a truth no one wants to hear. People don't hate the truth, they hate the person who reminds them they were wrong. But the war that fed that price frenzy was almost over, and no one on the plains stopped to ask, if prices were only pinned by gunfire far away, then when the guns fell silent, who would hold them in place? The war far away will eventually come to an end. And a price anchored only by the sound of gunfire will fall the moment the guns fall silent. Europe began replanting its own wheat. The $2 price that was once guaranteed is no longer guaranteed by anyone. By mid-1920, agricultural prices were still 31% higher than the previous year, and 121% higher than before the war. But that was exactly the peak. Right after that, the market collapsed with no brakes. By 1928, the price of wheat had fallen to about $1 a bushel, less than half of its heyday. This is the oldest trap in agriculture. When the price per bushel drops, a smart person has to plant less to hold the price up. But farmers at that time were carrying debt from the years they bought land and tractors at high prices. Paying off debt required cash, and cash only came from selling more wheat. So instead of pulling back, they did the exact opposite, plowed more land. To make up for the lost prices with sheer volume. The lower the price, the harder they toiled, the harder they toiled, the lower the price fell. That wasn't some random vicious cycle, it was a self-tightening trap, whose jaws were none other than the hands of the very person caught in it. By 1931, the price of wheat had fallen below 40 cents a bushel, less than one-fifth of its 1917 peak. Across the whole region, by the early 1930s, 5,200,000 acres of virgin prairie had been plowed under. People called it the Great Plow-Up. When prices hit rock bottom, the suitcase farmers who had swarmed in when prices were high simply abandoned ship and fled. Behind them lay only bare fields, no grass to hold the soil, no one left to tend it. The land does not wait. On September 14, 1930, the first black blizzard rose up from those very abandoned fields. This isn't the ordinary dry dust, this is topsoil, something that should have taken thousands of years to build up, now blowing into the sky simply because there are no more grass roots left to hold it in place. For years afterward, more and more such storms arose across the plains. Inside their homes, people stuffed wet towels under the door cracks, sealed every window shut, and waited for the storm to pass. In the fields, livestock have no barns to hide in, they can only huddle together and weather the storm. That was only the first notice the land had sent, not the bill yet. And worse was still coming, yet in Washington, no one had had time to look up. How much land, how many people will have to pay the price for the capital that was dug up and sold off? The land doesn't wait for anyone to realize their mistake. It just keeps a tally, then one day, it sends the bill. In the years that followed, the dust storms didn't thin out, they grew thicker, worse with each passing year, each storm heavier than the last. The damage is now so great that no one can deny it anymore. Then came a day that revealed the full scale of this matter. That mass of black dust rose like a moving mountain range, sweeping straight toward the east. On April 14, 1935, it was estimated that as much as 3 million tons of topsoil were blown eastward from Oklahoma, in a single day. Counting the entire decade of the 1930s, more than 125 million acres of land across the plains had lost their topsoil. And 2,500,000 people had to leave the southern plains to seek a livelihood elsewhere. On the morning of March 20, 1935, a soil scientist named Hugh Hammond Bennett was testifying before the House Public Lands Committee, trying to convince Congress to pass soil conservation legislation. He knew in advance, from the weather report, that at that very moment a dust storm was sweeping in from the plains toward Washington. He deliberately dragged out his testimony, waiting until the sky outside the window had turned dark. The cloud of dust from those very wheat fields, abandoned thousands of miles away, arrived, and the outdoor light went out completely. He pointed out the window and said to the members of Parliament, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I have just presented." No one in the room needed any more data. Just over a month later, on April 27, 1935, the Soil Conservation Act was passed. That act established America's first soil conservation agency. Looking back at this whole affair, the root cause did not lie in the weather was merely the executioner. The root of it all lies in confusing capital with profit. The native grasslands, with roots plunging yards deep into the earth, are the capital, accumulated over thousands of years, paying steady interest in regrowing grass each season to feed livestock. The war driving up wheat prices was merely a chance for quick profit, but people didn't just skim off the profit, they dug up and sold off the very capital itself. And when prices collapsed, instead of stopping to give their remaining capital a chance to recover, they dug further, dug deeper, only to compensate for a falling price caused by their own overdigging. That was a lesson not just for the plains farmers of 1930. That is a lesson for anyone, at any time, who faces an unusually large profit and starts to believe it will never run dry. The earth doesn't ask what you believe. Land only counts how much you've taken from it, and whether you return it on time. The bushel of wheat that once bought half a month's wages is now just a line in old ledgers, but its real price, the land has already collected in full. Years later, grass began to grow again over the old plow furrows, slowly, but it still grew. He said nothing more. Some things, telling them once is enough to be heard. He turned his horse and rode toward the darkening meadow. The meadow, still there, silent, waiting for someone to finally learn this lesson right.
Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you stopping by. I hope you enjoy the view as much as I do. Don't forget to hit bell. Take care and see you soon.